إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهديه الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. We continue inshallah ta'ala with Kitab At-Tawheed, and we reach the 7th chapter in the book, and the title of the chapter, he says, Bab min ash-shirki lubsul halqati wal khayti wa nahwihima li raf'i al-bala'i aw daf'i. And if you have an English version of the book, I don't have it with me, so you probably have a better translation than what I would say inshallah. But this is the beginning of series of chapters after describing, explaining the meaning of the Tawheed and how to establish it, and how that the Tawheed of Allah, which is the most important thing in our deen, the oneness of worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, can never be attained unless a person would disbelieve in anything that is being worshipped besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The worst thing that can ever happen to someone is to fall into the shirk, associating partners with Allah. That negates La ilaha illallah, versus the other part of al-kalima, when a person says wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, what negates that is the bid'ah. Either you follow the sunnah or you innovate in the deen of al-Islam. So the series of chapters that would come, some of the examples of matters that is shirk, in the category of shirk, but there is minor shirk and major shirk. Major shirk, major, that means it takes a person outside the fold of al-Islam, the actions of the mushrikeen. The minor shirk, it doesn't take the person outside the fold of al-Islam, but it has the same essence of the shirk when the heart is relying upon other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And these minor shirk are worse than the major sins. Minor shirk are worse than the major sins. And it leads, or it can lead easily for the person to fall into the major shirk. So it's something that we have to be warned against. And within the minor shirk, a person might fall into the major one. It depends on how they understand or they believe in it. But we'll go through this or these examples and to understand what's the principles behind it, so that it's easy for us to understand it one chapter after the other. This particular chapter says min ash-shirk. From the shirk, lubsu al-halqa, to wear al-halqa. Al-halqa is a ring, wal-khayt, thread, amulets, twines, whatever people they would wear, وَنَحْوِهِمَا, and the like of it. So it doesn't have to be one particular thing. Anything that people would wear, لِرَفْعِ الْبَلَاءِ أَوْ دَفْعِهِ, to lift away the trials or the harmful things that happens to them, or to push it away. So basically they're taking a mean to push away harm. So if we understand this clearly, inshallah, we know that in our life, plus the subject of the shirk and the tawheed is not very popular when it's the most important thing in the deen. It's a very sad reality that many of us as Muslims will talk about all kinds of things, but the core of the religion, people turn away from explaining it and being well concerned about how to learn it and how to avoid it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy, inshallah ta'ala. What's behind this, or the principle behind this, is that we as human beings, when we live on the face of earth, there are means that we use, whether to bring what is good or to push away what is harmful. And this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us. And taking the means does not negate at-tawakkul ala Allah, relying upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not shirk to take the means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created for us. But the means that are existing on the face of earth, or the permissible means, are two types of means. The physical means that everybody knows, human beings, you don't have to give them too much details about it. Everybody takes it. If you're hungry, you eat. If you're thirsty, you drink. That's a mean. Right? If someone says, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will for me to be provided for, I will be provided for, of course. But you take the means. Otherwise, there's something wrong with you. You're insane. You're not responsible for your actions. So the physical means, are the same thing with taking medicine and things of that nature, as long as everything is according to the Sharia, according to the deen of Allah. There's another set of means where it's called religious means. So al-asbab al-shar'iyya. Religious means, what does it mean? We don't know it by the physical sense of things. We know it from the wahy from Allah, from the revelation from Allah, the Qur'an and the Sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. So for example, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ. Whoever is obedient to Allah, whoever fears Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make ways out for him and will provide for him from where he does not expect. This is not a physical mean, this is a religious mean. You got to know that by the wahy. So when you fear Allah, when you're dutiful to Allah, and you take the physical means, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will provide for you, will make ways out for you, and so on. The Qur'an is a mean of cure. So making ruqya, for example, reciting the Qur'an as a mean of cure, physical cure to physical ailments. This is a mean, this is a religious mean that has a physical effect, right? Or dua and things of that nature. Whoever takes means, then after knowing these two sets of means, if it's physical means, it's known with how people, human beings, they know it. With the religious means, it has to be with the proof and evidence from the Qur'an and the Sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And therefore, whoever takes any means, whether it's not physical means, clearly physical means, or religious means, then they fall into the category of shirk. And it depends, whether minor or major. So when someone wears a ring for the purpose, not for imitating women or imitating others, no, he's wearing it with the belief that this will push away harm from him. Or someone wears a bracelet or a thread around his, in his hands or in his elbow or whatever there is, with the belief that it has an effect. It has an effect to push away harm, to bring benefit. Is that a physical mean? The answer is no. Is a religious mean? Is something in the Quran and the Sunnah says this? Of course not. Actually, it says the opposite. So that means this is shirk. This is associating partners with Allah. And it's in the categories of minor shirk, unless a person believes in it in itself, that this benefits and harms by itself, not a mean to bring benefit or to push harm. No, this in itself brings harm or brings good and push away harm, which is many people, they don't believe that way, but this makes it a major shirk. So this is what he says from the shirk, doing these types of things. Then he mentioned 5 evidences in the chapter. The first one is ayah of the Qur'an. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Az-Zumar, verse number 38. قُلْ أَفَرَأَيْتُم مَا تَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ إِنْ أَرَادَنِيَ اللَّهُ بِضُرٍّ هَلْ هُنَّ كَاشِفَاتُ ضُرِّهِ. The ayah. So here the ayah says, more or less meaning, say, O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, قُلْ أَفَرَأَيْتُم مَا تَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ. Did you see what you invoke besides Allah? These things that they invoke besides Allah, the idols, the images, whatever. إِنْ أَرَادَنِيَ اللَّهُ بِضُرٍّ هَلْ هُنَّ كَاشِفَاتُ ضُرِّهِ. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will harm for me, would they lift away the harm that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed for me? The kuffar of Quraysh, they did not believe that. So the ayah was bringing the evidence against them in such a question that they are left to say no answer whatsoever. So why you worship them besides Allah? When they cannot push away harm from you, meaning in the sense as they did not answer. Of course, they worshipped these idols to bring benefit, to push away harm. But the question here in the ayah, if Allah willed harm for me, would these idols push it away? They would say no. Right? Even though they worship it to push away the harm. But they believe that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will harm, then the idols would never be able to push away the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the ayah is used here as a clear evidence that no one can push away the harm if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not will for it to happen. So that means it doesn't have any means whatsoever. So that means these fabricated means that people invented, it's falsehood, and falsehood has no reality to it. It's something that people invented, and they believed in whatever they invented, and they wished for whatever they invented that it would have an effect. And if you remember when we talked about the ayah أَمْ لِلْإِنسَانِ مَا تَمَنَّى in the context of the mushrikeen, the polytheists, those who worship besides Allah, they invented falsehood, something that no wahy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would ever reveal through this. So they invented it, and they then wish that it would have an effect. So falsehood after false. Someone makes an idol, he made it with his own hands, no evidence to it whatsoever, and then he start worshiping, asking for benefit from it, and that it can benefit him by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he's waiting and expecting that would bring any benefit to him. How foolish that is. If it was, for example, a false evidence that they followed, no, they invented the lie, as someone would lie, and then after some time he believes his lie and he acts upon it. So the same thing when it comes to these false means that they invented. So the ayah is clear in this. And then he mentioned some of the athar. First one, عن Imran ibn Husayn, radiallahu anh. And we're being brief, by the way, instead of going into details of, so that we can finish something. It's very important that we finish the book, and we finish it in a brief. We understand what every word in it means, so that we can benefit from it, inshallah ta'ala. Imran ibn Husayn, radiallahu anhu, أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم رأى رجلا في يده حلقة من صفر. That the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam saw in the hands of a man a ring from sufr, from brass or copper. And sufr is because it's yellow in color. فقال ما هذه? He said to him, what is this? He said, قال من الواهنة. This is from the wahina. Al-wahina is a disease from al-wahan al-da'af, something that would cause the person to be weak. Whether it's something in the nerves in the arms or in the shoulder or elsewhere. So this is basically the weakness that a person will be afflicted with. So he said, min al-wahina. He's wearing it so that it means of cure for him from al-wahina, or the weakness that he has, or this nerve that once it hits the person, he's in extreme pain. So he's wearing it for that reason. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, فَقَالَ إِنْزِعْهَا. إِنْزِعْهَا, take it away. And إِنْزِعْهَا is not just take it away. النزع قل اللهم مالك الملك تؤتي الملك من تشاء وتنزع الملك ممن تشاء. As the ayah in the Qur'an that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives the mulk, the kingdom, or the sovereignty to whoever He wills. And وَتَنْزِعَ الْمُلْك, and you take the mulk away. Normally the mulk or kingdom or position that someone has it with the means of oppression, it's not taken away easy. It has to be snatched away. So this is the word inzi'aha, is not a simple, just take it away and nicely. Inzi'aha, that means remove it away. It's a strong word. So the Prophet ﷺ said to him, inzi'aha, take it away. فَإِنَّهَا لَا تَزِيدُكَ إِلَّا وَهْنًا. It doesn't increase you anything but more weakness. So, and see how the statement فَإِنَّهَا لَا تَزِيدُكَ, and we talked about this type of style of sentences. Because indeed it doesn't increase you anything but weakness. That means it's, why would you do something like that to yourself? Nothing but weakness, it will increase the weakness to you. And then he said, فَإِنَّكَ لَوْ مِتَّ وَهِيَ عَلَيْكَ مَا أَفْلَحْتَ أَبَدًا. And if you die while this is on you, you would never be successful forever. And this is reported by Imam Ahmad rahimahullah بِسَنَدٍ لَا بَأْسَ بِهِ. So you see how the severity, how the tough speech with something that it doesn't look as something major. Someone is just wearing a bracelet of brass or copper, but he mentioned why he's wearing it. And he said, min al-wahina, as a mean to protect him from harm or to a mean of cure. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so the Prophet ﷺ, at first he told him to remove it. And he explained to him that it doesn't increase you anything but weakness. And if you die, you would never, ما أفلحت أبدا, and al-falah is the success. So the Prophet ﷺ, he made the success as a condition for him to remove this and never to wear these types of things. So this shows again the severity of it, and therefore it shows that it's haram, and it's something that even ما أفلحت أبدا, something that shows that the punishment in the hereafter as a result of this. وله عن عقبة بن عامر, also from Uqba ibn Amr radiallahu anhu marfu'an, that means he's saying that the Prophet ﷺ said marfu'an, that means it's not the statement of Uqba ibn Amr, it's from the Prophet ﷺ that he said, من تعلق تميمة فلا أتم الله له ومن تعلق ودعة فلا ودع الله له. من تعلق, التعلق is when you hang something. So من تعلق تميمة, whoever hangs a tamima, And al-alaqa in the stages of the embryo is because it hangs into the uterus. So man ta'allaqa tamimatan, whoever hangs a tamima. A tamima is the amulet, something that people wears, again, to push away harm or to bring benefit. And the tamima can be in whatever people they might use. They might even, the things that they have things written in it, for example, when they wrap it. And it's present. It's not. We're not talking about something in the past. This is something that is happening even in your own locality. You would find things like this. People import it even from overseas. You have containers importing these types of things, where if you open it, some of it has sihr in it, or has dealing with jinns, which is matters of kufr. And some of it, if it's opened, you would find even words of kufr mentioned there, or ayah of the Qur'an taken a word from it. So instead of praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's doing the opposite. There's all kinds of crazy things like this, which is evil as it clearly can be. Or even if people would do something that is only Qur'an, only the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's as it will come inshallah ta'ala, even though some had mentioned if it's purely Qur'an, but how would someone differentiate between the Qur'an only and something else? And plus going to the bathroom, plus also what's in the hearts of the people is not about the Qur'an, it's about the things that they hang. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Man ta'allaqa tamimatan," whoever hangs these types of things. They used to hang it on the necks of the little children to protect them and things of that nature. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Fala atamma Allahu lah." Making dua against the person and using the same as tamima, atam, that means from al-itmam, from the kamal, from the perfection, for saying, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not make him attain what he's seeking, opposite to what he intended. He intended by it to be protected, may Allah does not protect him as he does this. Because this is shirk, associating partners with Allah, having the hearts to be attached to something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not create as a mean. وَمَنْ تَعَلَّقَ وَدْعَةً, and whoever hangs wada'a. Al-wada' is the shells in the sea, by the shore of the sea. You know how the shells, white shells like this. And I witnessed that myself more than one time. You would find people on the beaches in some parts of the world where a woman, for example, having tattoos on her face and things like this. Old lady would come with these things, and she would say to the people, in the Egyptian slang, "Washwish al-wada'." That means whisper to the wada'. Whisper to it, say to the shell whatever you want, and then she does all kinds of things. It's all for money and things like this. But some people, they will believe in it. And they would hang it and recite things on it, and then they hang it on their children and things like this. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Man ta'allaqa wada'a, fala wada'a Allahu lah." That way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not, again, do means of goodness for him, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not make him benefit from it whatsoever. And so this is, again, there's another hadith as it's going to be there, but here, فَلَا وَدَعَ اللَّهُ لَهُ. That means may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not leave anything for him. That means he will be deprived as a result of these ta'aliq or these things that he hangs. So wada' is when you leave something. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not leave anything for him as a result of this evil thing that the person would do. So at-ta'alluq, which is or hanging something physically, and in the other narration, "Man ta'allaqa tamimatan faqad ashrak." Clear statement from the Prophet ﷺ, whoever hangs a tamima, amulet, faqad ashrak, he committed shirk. This is an act of shirk, as the Prophet ﷺ said. So the previous evidences, it shows that it's evil, but it doesn't have the word shirk mentioned there explicitly. In this narration, faqad ashrak. So that means all of these ta'aliq, all of these things that the people hangs, as it's mentioned in the previous narrations, it's all in the category of shirk. Someone would say, why is it shirk? Because the Prophet ﷺ said. So this is a clear evidence. And then the last one, the fifth evidence, he says, وَلِبْنِ أَبِي حَاتِمْ عَنْ حُذَيْفَةَ رضي الله عنه, one of the great companions of the Prophet ﷺ, أنه رأى رجلا في يده خيط من الحمى. He saw a man in his hand khayt, a thread, من الحمى. من الحمى, that means to protect him from the fever. فقطعه. Hudayfa cut that thread off from this man. وَتَلَى قَوْلَهُ, and he recited the ayah in Surah Yusuf, وَمَا يُؤْمِنُ أَكْثَرُهُم بِاللَّهِ إِلَّا وَهُم مُشْرِكُونَ, which means most of them, they don't believe in Allah unless they accept that they are mushrikun. They commit shirk even though they believe in Allah. So he quoted an ayah that was revealed about the disbelievers, and he quoted because of this man was hanging something like this. And it's going to be mentioned in the benefits. But of course it shows, of course, someone like Hudayfa radiallahu anhu, because someone would say, should we do that to others? If you have, this is part of forbidding the munkar, the evil, that has the maratib or the levels of forbidding the evil. If you're someone of authority towards someone like your son or so, then definitely do that. And if it's someone that respects you, take you as a religious authority, do that. So Hudayfa radiallahu anhu, a sahabi from the companion of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he cut it for that person. Nowadays, and you would, if you see someone wearing these types of things, advise him. And then after you advise him and you show him the evidences that this is matters of shirk, tell him, can I cut it for you? And people will be scared. They will be scared that if something happens like that, the evil will come on them and they will be afflicted with harm. So you tell them, don't worry, I'll do it for you. Right? And you cut it for him and free him from this enslavement that he enslaved himself to something that does not exist. And the shayateen, of course, they become stronger on the people. When you weaken your heart, when the heart is weakened with the shirk and associating partners with Allah, shaitan is in charge. And then he leads the person from one thing, one evil after the other. So to help the people to stay away from these matters of shirk, and many of these young children will be afflicted by this. Their parents, they would think that because of their imam or whatever got them something like this, that this is a good thing to protect the kids from evil and things of that nature. Again, the matter is very clear. And subhanAllah, how still it exists. And people would claim that they have knowledge of the deen of Islam and they ignore these evidences from the Qur'an and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And it's amazing how the ways of the shaitan is. The masail or the benefits that we learn from this, first of all, At-Tawheed في لبس الحلقة والخيط ونحوه من مثل ذلك. At-Tawheed, that means the harshness, the toughness, that the matter is a very serious one. It's not a matter that you can say it's okay or to belittle this matter. No, this is an evil thing. This is a major thing. The second thing is أن الصحابي لو مات. The Prophet ﷺ said to this man, if you die ما أفلحت أبدا, if you die when you have this, وهي عليك, you would never be successful. And this man is a sahabi, is a companion because he saw the Prophet ﷺ, he talked to the Prophet ﷺ. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said to him that, so he said, أن الصحابي, the companion, لو مات وهي عليه ما أفلح. If he dies when he has it on, he would never be successful. فيه شاهد لكلام الصحابة أن الشرك الأصغر أكبر من الكبائر. This has an evidence from statements of the Sahaba that the minor shirk is worse than the major sins. The minor shirk is worse than the major sins. Of course, the Sahaba, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected them from this. But it shows if that's someone that a Sahabi was addressed by this, then how about those who are less than the Sahaba radiallahu anhum? It's like when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, لَإِنْ أَشْرَكْتَ لا يحبطن عملك ولا تكونن من الخاسرين. If you, O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, ashrakt, if you fall into shirk, لا يحبطن عملك, your deeds will be rendered in vain and you will be among the losers ones in the day of judgment. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasallam would never do that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected him from this. But it shows that it addresses the Prophet alayhi salatu wasallam and what is meant other than the Prophet alayhi salatu wasallam. That even if, which would never happen, if the Prophet ﷺ would ever do something like this and it would never happen, this is the recompense of it. So you can imagine then how severe the matter is. And that's why, because the level of the Prophet ﷺ was attained by the actions and the belief of the Prophet ﷺ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose and protected him from all sins. So this is a benefit. The third one, the subject of أنه لم يعذر بالجهالة. This man was not given the excuse of ignorance that he doesn't know. And the Prophet ﷺ said to him these harsh words, harsh warnings. And this, the best nasiha, the concern is there. The real kind person to others is the one that is sincere in their nasiha. You see someone is going to be ruined, his life is ruined, and you don't want to make him upset, so you don't tell him anything. You are betraying that person. And that person at the end will, if he can have the means to curse you, he would do so. So you betrayed him. So yes, he might be upset with you now, but if you do it in such a nice way, in a good way, but warning, this is the job of the messengers of Allah, not to leave the people like this to lead themselves astray. So, and he did not give him the excuse that he doesn't know. And that's why the matter has to be also be of a concern. The fourth one, أنها لا تنفع في العاجلة بل تضر. These types of things, it's not that it's harmful in the hereafter, it's also harmful in this immediate life, in this life. Because he says, لا تزيدك إلا وهنا. It doesn't increase you anything but weakness. So you're seeking from it to benefit from it in this life? No, it won't. It won't benefit you. It would increase your weakness. So what's the purpose of it? What's the benefit of it? Number 5, al-inkar bil-taghlid. The inkar is forbidding the evil, and sometimes with taghlid, that means with harshness. And this is something that, as the ulama, they say you have to assess the situation that you're in. Sometimes if you make inkar of something, someone is doing evil, something bad, it's not always a good thing to say in a soft way that this is evil. He might not get the reality of it, right? He won't get the sense that this is such an evil thing. So sometimes the harshness in the way that you would forbid the evil depends on the sin. But at the same time, you don't want to bring harm as a result of that, or he would not listen. So gentleness with making sure that the matter is very clear, and it depends on what the person, how close or far from you when it comes to relationships and things of that nature. But to make sure that the sin is being expressed the way it's supposed to be. And people understand that. If someone is, killed someone, for example, they would not speak to him the same way as if they committed a minor sin, for example. The matter is different because the sins are levels. Minor shirk is worse than the major sins. Minor shirk is worse than the major sin. So if you have someone having these amulets and so on versus someone is drinking alcohol, which is worse? And it's not to belittle a sin, never. But which is worse? The minor shirk. Because it's affecting the core of the religion, the matter of the Tawheed. This entire deen is about the Tawheed of Allah. Versus the sinful one, he knows that he's committing sin, he wants to repent to Allah, things of that nature. And it's not to belittle again the sins. But when you put both together, as Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, and we mentioned that before, if you remember in the very beginning, it's way to understand sometimes certain speeches and certain sentences. When he said, لَأَنْ أَحْلِفَ بِاللَّهِ كَاذِبًا أَحَبُّ إِلَيْ مَنْ أَحْلِفَ بِغَيْرِهِ صَادِقًا. Right? He said, for me to swear by Allah lying is more beloved to me than to swear by other than Allah truthfully. The question is, does Abdullah ibn Mas'ud is saying it's okay to swear by Allah lying? No. Does he belittle that? This is Yamin Ghamus, dips the person in the hellfire. He's showing how evil it is to swear by other than Allah. So he puts it in such a sentence. When you see the sentence, he's saying, for me to swear by Allah lying, which is a major, major sin. But he says it's more beloved to me than to swear by other than Allah truthfully. Because if he swears by other than Allah, this is in the category of what? Shirk. And shirk is far worse than major sins. So to make it very clear, and that's why there is something in the human beings that they don't put things in the right perspective. And we need to exalt what Allah exalted, and we need to belittle what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala belittled, and so on. So what is the worst thing that can happen to a person? A shirk. And it should be clear in oneself that this is the worst evil ever. Even if it doesn't look like anything. What is a person wearing an amulet or a thread on his arm? He's not doing anything to anybody. He's just, leave him alone. But he's doing something so evil. Yes, advise him. The evil of it is far worse than the major sins. Clear? So then that's why he says al-inkaru bil-taghlid. Number 6, at-tasrih bi-anna man ta'allaqa shay'an wukila ilayh. This is also a principle. Whoever hangs or he's attached to something, he will be left to that thing. Wukila ilayhi. Tawakkul is to rely upon something. So if you rely upon something, if you rely upon a wall when you're standing, you're left to the wall. That means if the wall falls, you fall with it. Right? That's why in Salat al-Fard, if you're next to the wall and you're standing, al-Qiyam is rukn. Right? Standing in the Salah, in the Fard, the Salah is a pillar of the Salah unless a person is not able to stand. But if someone is able to stand, but he cannot lean on the wall. And that means he leans in such a way that if the wall falls, he falls with it. his salah is not valid because he's supposed to be standing. Now he's not standing, right? So, but this is on the side. So the issue of, as a principle, whoever relies on something, that means what? He depends on it. If that thing is gone, he goes with it. So that's why at-tawakkul is ibadah. And we make tawakkul upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. الحي الذي لا يموت وتوكل على الحي الذي لا يموت. Rely upon the ever living, the one that never dies, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Other than Allah, they all die. So if you rely with your heart upon other than Allah, you will go with them. That means they won't benefit you. من تعلق شيئا وكل إليه. Whoever his heart is attached to something, he will be left for that something to benefit him or to harm him. And it won't benefit him and it won't push the harm away from him because it doesn't own it. It doesn't have it. So that's why the heart has to be fully attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the essence of the Tawheed. To rely fully upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who's the one that brings the benefit? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who's the one that pushes away the harm? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So why rely upon the human beings, the creation of Allah? And how evil it is, the shirk, again, when people invented something that it does not exist. So this is a very important principle. من تعلق شيئا وكل إليه. Number 7, التصريح بأن من تعلق تميمة فقد أشرك. Very explicit, clearly, that whoever hangs an amulet, he had committed a shirk. Again, why he's having it on? Because he believes that it pushes away evil and it brings benefit. Number 8, أن تعليق الخيط من الحمى من ذلك. Also to wear thread to push away the fever and all of that, it's from the same category. Hudayfa radiallahu anhu, number 9, recited a verse. Even the verse is addressing the disbelievers, as it's mentioned in Surah Yusuf, but it's a dalil, it's an evidence that the Sahaba radiallahu anhum would take the verses that talks about shirk al-akbar, the major shirk, to take it as an evidence also on the minor shirk. As Abdullah ibn Abbas, he mentioned also in the ayah of Surah Al-Baqarah. But the point here is, the verses that talks about the shirk al-akbar is a major shirk, of course. But the shirk al-asghar, it doesn't take the person outside the fold of Islam, but it shares some common things with the major shirk. So, and it doesn't mean that as people, with the people of evil, the people of innovation, they don't have knowledge to rely upon, so they start spreading lies about matters of the truth like this. So they would say, oh, you're making takfir of the people, blanket takfir. This does not exist. The people of ulama of Ahl Sunnah, they don't make these types of things. There's major difference between showing that this is an act of shirk. Even if the act is major shirk, it doesn't mean that the doer of it, he leaves the fold of Islam. Because a person might be ignorant, might be this and that. And to give a verdict that someone becomes a disbeliever, this is as if you're exactly making a verdict to cut the hand of a thief. Do you have the authority to do that? Of course not. So it's the same thing. So that means it's to be left to the people of authority, to the people of knowledge, things of that nature. So here the subject of when he mentioned about the ayah or that Hudayfa radiallahu anhu recited, to show that it has the same thing. وَمَا يُؤْمِنُ أَكْثَرُهُمْ بِاللَّهِ لَهُمْ مُشْرِكُونَ. They're believers, but they have shirk, which shows that a person can be a believer and has some acts of shirk that he needs to stay away from. 2 more points. أن تعليق الودع عن العين من ذلك. Also to hang the wada', the shells of the sea or whatever, it's from the same category. The last thing, الدعاء على من تعلق تميمة أن الله لا يتم له. The dua against the one that carries something like this or hangs something like this, that Allah does not make things, his affairs complete for him. And whoever hangs wada'a, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't leave anything for him. That means he's always going to be deprived of things and things of that nature. So this is how clear the matter is. And we talked about the foundation of it when it comes to the matters of means. And it shows that we need to learn our aqidah. And we need to make sure that, again, these are evidences from the Qur'an and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And it also shows us to be warned against the ones that are upon these types of things. And when someone, and this is a responsibility upon us, our masajid, when we talk day and night about only, for example, al-akhlaq, good manners, we have to have good manners. MashaAllah is beautiful. And we have to talk about it day and night. But then no talk about matters of aqidah, matters of tawheed, how to protect ourselves from shirk. We have to have that balance. And it doesn't mean that once a person becomes a Muslim, he's protected from this. Then what's the purpose of these ayat and these ahadith? This is the foundation of the deen. And as the ulama, they say, the more you finish this, you start over again. And you constantly upon this. And if you look at communities or nations or parts on the earth, when people do not teach matters of Tawheed and warn against shirk, what happens? People fall into the shirk. This is because shaitan is working on this. Right? And if you talk about stories about this, there's no end to it. And people are always amazed by things that shaitan makes it as if it's a miraculous. Someone saw in his dream this. People nowadays make action based on their dreams or what it feels and things of that nature. When we have clear evidences from the Qur'an and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, so how can someone after this approve for himself or for others to wear these types of things when the evidences are very clear? So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us firm upon the haqq, upon the truth. And it doesn't matter whether your situation physically is different or not. Nuh alayhi salam, mentioned this morning, Nuh alayhi salam, how long he called his people to the haqq? 950 years. The Quran says, ألف سنة إلا 50 عاما. 1,000 minus 50 years, his da'wah. Allahu alam how they lived. The da'wah, calling people for that long. Was he victorious with his da'wah like that? The answer is no, according to the physical means that people see. Because at the end he says, إني مغلوب فانتصر. Oh Allah, I'm defeated. So bring the victory from you. So the flood came at the end. And وَمَا آمَنَ مَعَهُ إِلَّا قَلِيلٌ. Only few believed in him after all of these years. And as Imam al-Qurtubi rahimahullah, he said in his tafsir that you can imagine, when you think about it, 1,000 years. The man would take his son. He said a man would take his son at the time of Nuh alayhi salam. He would take his son and he would say that Nuh alayhi salam, he's a liar, he's this. The man dies and the son becomes old in age and he's still upon the same evil. Right? Long period of time. And they're still upon the same evil and the victory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not coming. Does that mean that any bad things? No, actually this is how the nature of life. Which means what matters is for the person to be upon the haqq. That's the victorious one. Is the one that is upon the truth and he holds fast to the truth till the moment of death comes. And this is what really our covenant with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the importance of holding fast to the deen of Allah. So ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among those who are firm upon the deen of Allah. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala Muhammad wa sahbihi wa sallam.